He is going to talk a little bit more about how crypto can be a hedge on inflation. Be sure to check it out.
Well, I think that, a lot of what you said, as you pointed out, we tend to think of it from the West point of view because, again, it's very common for us here to have access to a bank, to be able to transfer funds digitally. Again, you have that lag time with banks, but we still have a pretty robust system here. Rich, you're the money guy. I'm sure you have lots of questions based on what he was saying. I'll let you start out here.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of things, and I think it's very the whole concept is new, and I think from my perspective, I like the idea of blockchain. I like the idea because there is nobody policing it, and it's one of those things that you can have a free market system when you're dealing with that, and there's accountability. So, I'm sure in the next sort of segment when I throw it back to you to, tell me a lot more, I think you're going to talk more about the crypto part of it. And I think that's the part where I kind of get lost a little bit. But the blockchain, I like the idea of there is no government intervention. Nobody owns it. It's sort of like the internet. I can't say I own the internet. No, I don't, and I can't even say I invented it or anything like that, like all these crazy things that you've heard over the years. It's just a free market accessibility of people all around the globe. So I think with blockchain, I think of it the same way. Is there any reason for me not to think of it that way, though? I mean, what you kind of mentioned was there are ways, obviously the government wants to grab whatever it can grab. Same reason they grabbed everything with the banking system, right? And while we can say it's not sustainable, it's 200 years old. So I don't know what sustainability becomes when it's, kind of been, this is the way it is. And this is the way it's been since, Alexander Hamilton or whoever actually came up with the banking system. I think it was him, way back long, right? So is there anything else, like if we can keep it out of the hands of the government, then it really just grows to the point of taking over like the internet did, correct?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things, right? When you look at, it's a very theoretical thing, right? Because should currency be left to the free market, right? And this is the question that we have to ask ourselves. Or should it be held with a private entity that kind of controls it and decides when, they want to increase or decrease the interest rates, and have the people scramble basically to decide, especially imagine it's a nightmare. Imagine if you're, on a variable mortgage and then they just decide to increase the interest rates. And then it's like, oh man, now I have to pay more for my mortgage, And so you kind of don't really get to decide. And should one entity be able to play God in this kind of sense, And this is the thing that we have to ask ourselves. Does it make sense in the way the system is working now with how we keep having to increase the amount of supply of money every single year and decrease the amount of wealth in percentages that people have to make them keep having to produce more and more each and every year? I just don't think it's sustainable. If you look at all the different fiat models, they've all crashed, right? You look at Zimbabwe, you look at even Rome when they started mixing their coins with like stuff that wasn't tangible. They started mixing it to increase the amount of coins. You look at so many different systems that have failed, with the fiat system. You look at right now what's going on in Argentina, and now they have that new president because, their currency was inflating at 100% plus a year. Imagine, just think about the ideal of you, let's say you make like $1,000 a month in Argentina, right? You got to wait for your check at the end of the month. And because the inflation is so high, that $1,000 is not $900 at the end of the month in terms of purchasing power. That is insane, right? And so these are some of the things that I look at when I think of the current fiat system that we have currently. And that's why Bitcoin made a lot of sense to me. And there are a couple of weaknesses and obviously trade-offs that comes with it, because if you lose your crypto that you have in your wallet, you lose it forever. There's no customer service, So this is the thing that kind of frightens a lot of people, because it's like, oh, I can't call up Satoshi and just be like, hey, sorry, I lost my coins in cyberspace. Can I get them back, please? And it kind of doesn't work that way. But then it ties back into a little bit of philosophy of, we as sovereign individuals, should we have control over our currency, or is it that we just aren't responsible enough that we should have a way in which the government still is able to control that? And that's something that I don't really have an answer to be honest with you, but I do see it as an alternative form of currency, right? And I think we can have a hybrid. This is what I particularly think. I think we can still, Bitcoin can still exist and fiat can still exist. And people should be allowed to choose. The free market should be allowed to choose what's more valuable, right? Over the course of time. But I don't think that we'll just go into this hyper Bitcoinization. There's some people that are very maximalist and they think we're just going to go into this hyper Bitcoinization. I don't necessarily think that. I think that it's just going to be another currency like the euro, it already is, it has over 100 million users. It already is. It has deep enough liquidity. You see what's going on now with the institutions getting in. If you look at BlackRock, right, they're getting in, Fidelity, Wisdom Tree, Deutsche Bank, name it, and they're all getting in now because they see it as a viable solution, because there's no better investment vehicle that we've ever had over the entire landscape of this past decade and a half, that this thing has been around. It's outperformed everything. It's the best performing asset class of my generation. And if you just hold it for a long period of time, you just have to have a long-term approach, because it's an investment. It's not something that I think you should trade in the long term. If you buy it at the top, it's been proven every single time you buy at the top, you hold it for 4 years, it outpaces when you bought it. And you can dollar cost average down too as well. And there's no better performing asset class for my generation. I think my generation right now, there's issues in my generation because you guys are a little bit older, and I know you guys have probably been beaten into your heads the 60-40 model, right? The stocks and bonds. And for my generation, when I did a podcast recently on why you should buy Bitcoin instead of real estate, and the reason I'm saying that, it's not for everybody, but the reason I'm saying that is because I firmly believe that if your net worth is not 7 figs plus, it doesn't make sense to buy real estate currently right now. This is this very, very controversial hot take, but I'll explain why, right? If you look at the fact that Bitcoin has outperformed real estate over the course of time, right? You look at the fact that the confiscation aspect, right? You can't confiscate it. You can confiscate my real estate. If I don't pay my property tax, what happens to my real estate?
Government takes it.
And yeah, exactly. So that aspect too as well. If you look, there's so many different outlooks that you can look at with why you should buy Bitcoin instead of real estate. I know it's super, super controversial, but I look at a lot of different factors and I see, okay, I have maintenance cost, and even if Bitcoin is not a yield generating asset, it still outperforms just off of asset appreciation more than my real estate property would. Its appreciation plus the revenue that you generate, it's usually around 5-6% yield that you're looking at. So when Bitcoin is doing around an 80 to 100% return on an average basis, if you hold it for a 4-year long time span, right? So why would I then buy real estate when I can outpace the rate of inflation of real estate by buying Bitcoin, build my net worth high enough, and then go buy real estate later when my net worth is high enough? And this is why I actually, with the clients that I've had too as well, I've suggested them, depending on their portfolio size, if you're talking about 100K less, it's better to invest into cryptocurrency in general as an asset class, because it's just going to outperform. Right now, Bitcoin is over 100% on the year. Is your real estate property over 100% on the year? No, it's not. I think what pisses
But is
a lot
that
of
a
people off.
bubble? I mean, every market kind of has this expansion, and then everyone gets in, then the hype, and that obviously adds to the value. So the earlier in, the better off you are. But then you get the people that enter in the later stages, and we kind of did see that a little bit with Bitcoin, where it shot up to $60,000 per Bitcoin, and then it went from there down to, I think it got down to the high teens or the low 20s. Well, a lot of people invested on the high side, and then of course, panic sets in, and then they sell off and they lose money, and that's usually when government gets involved, because of course that creates problems, and then they try to regulate in some way. So aren't we kind of going through a similar thing, almost like the real estate market in the the mid 2000s when, everyone was buying property. They were buying on, variable rates and stuff. And ultimately they were spending more money than they were making on it. And that's what led to the crash. Don't you see that happening here?
No, the reason is because when you look at it, it depends on when you buy. As a smart investor would do, especially when it comes to liquid markets, you should always dollar cost average, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to understand market cycles and how they work, right? It's the same in the stock market. You had stocks that were blue chip stocks down 50, 60, 70%. They were volatile. Would you consider them a bubble? Some people would consider Amazon a bubble after it crashed 90% down, when it came out, So was it a bubble? No, it's just, you need to time the market. If you can't time the market, which most people can't, then you should dollar cost average slowly, learn the asset that you're invested in, understand market cycles, and you get conviction through education, right? And so the asset is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Institutions are adopting it now. You have countries making it legal tender. More countries are going to start doing that because it just makes sense as an alternative because Argentina is a really good case study now because they're going to be put in the crossroads right now between what they should do. They obviously can't keep using their pesos because it's worthless. So they're looking to potentially dollarize, which is cool, but now you don't have control over your national currency and decide when you want to inflate the monetary supply for whatever you need and when you want to decrease the demand, through increasing interest rates. And so it's one of those things where Bukele, I think he made a good decision where he's like, look, we're not going to make another national currency. The other one that we had failed. And we're still going to dollarize, but we're going to do a hybrid, where we're going to give people the optionality as well to use this as a potential inflationary hedge, which it's proven to be over the long period of time. And so, no, I don't think it's a bubble. I think it just goes through cycles like every market, real estate too, as well. Stocks, they all go through these cycles. So if you buy, I have a buddy that's also really big into real estate in England. I did a podcast actually with him too as well. And he bought the top of real estate. He had to wait 10 years to see the value that he bought accrue in terms of asset appreciation. It took a long time. So I think that was it a bubble? No, he just bought at the wrong time, but he held and he stayed patient. And over the course of time, now his property value eventually, 75% from what he originally bought in terms of asset appreciation. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Dan.
More to come. Check out part 3.